start with one question for you, just as an informal survey of hands. Who's a current Second Stage Theater subscriber? Great, thank you. All right, so we are early in previews, and as you know, if you've come to these talkbacks before, they're an opportunity for you to ask questions you may have, also for us to ask questions if we have a few. But I really would like to open it up to the floor, and we'll do our best with the one mic, and I'll try to repeat back the questions if you can't hear. So, who wants to jump in? Oh, front row. What was the catalyst for the transformation of the healing process that occurred? Interesting question.
Will you specify which healing you're referring to? Are you speaking of near the end of the play when Diana determined? Yes, well, I think first you're speaking about when she says to the psychiatrist, I need to change the way in which I'm coping with this. Perhaps I've been treating the wrong disease. So that's the beginning of a process for her, and I think we're all hoping that that's just the beginning of a process and just the beginning of being healed, and that there were many, many, many challenges to come for her and her family. But that seemed to be the beginning of it. And would you like to speak to that in any degree more, Brian?
Well, I just think that, the catalyst for me is that
Catalyst for me.
I think for me the catalyst is that I think she realized that she'd been trying to get well for quite a long time, doing things this way, and it wasn't working, and so she decided to try something else. And I don't think she necessarily knows what that is, but I think that she, for the first time, maybe has enough kind of strength of will and clarity to say, you know what, that wasn't doing it. Let's try something new.
Another question. Yes.
Your idea first, they will guess that it came first. The music or the story?
Which came first, the music or the story? Is that okay? The story actually came first. Brian and I went to Columbia together. We started writing musicals there, and then we got to the BMI Musical Theater Workshop, and we had an assignment. It was a 10-minute musical. It was our final project, and Brian was very interested in the subject, and we wrote it as a 10-minute piece, sort of episodic, but the main story was the same, and we just kept writing songs for it, and eventually the story kind of came out of it. In terms of individual moments, it varies. Sometimes I'll come up with music first, sometimes the lyrics will come first, but the story started with Brian.
Yes. What was the rationale for not naming the dead boy? Because that was really at the end. Several occasions.
So what was the rationale for not naming Gabe, the dead child, throughout the play, and that moment at the end, which was so strong?
I'll begin to speak to that. Seems like because Dan is very, very busy taking care of Diana, or because he felt that the best way to take care of Diana would be to really erase and relinquish the memory of this tragedy, he very willfully puts that away. And perhaps that complicates the way in which she's unable to put that away, perhaps. So I think Diana, in the first act, is very clearly aware of his name. It's after she undergoes memory loss that she's unable to place it, and what she remembers is that Dan's never been able to utter that name. So I think that's the progression of the not knowing of the name.
Yes.
Maybe it's a little more adventurous, but I would like some several things that the third word you see is not really alive before. I began to recognize that later than I wish I.
When did you recognize it?
Somewhere
Our audience member has said, I would have appreciated or preferred subtle hints earlier, say, letting me know that the boy was not, in fact, a living boy. That was the question. And then Brian followed up with that and said, well, when is it that you first started getting hints about it?
Before you ended the first act, so I'm not sure exactly
Was it around about the time of the birthday cake? Is that how many people figured it out then? Who figured it out before that? Who still hasn't figured it out?
Interesting comment. Yes. Question. Yes.
Can I just follow that?
Sure.
Why did you feel you had to leave it for some of us, not knowing you still had to?
So the question is, why
was it our choice to leave it ambiguous, mysterious, or even misleading until that point?
Do you hear me in the back? You hear me in the back. Yeah. I think part of it was, and Michael and Tom, you can jump in. I think part of it was that one of the goals of our show is to try to not just show, but to help those of us in the audience watching feel some of the experience of being mentally ill, and to feel not only the sorrow of it, but also the dislocation and sort of occasional disorientation and the feeling that things we thought were one way are really another way, which is a lot of Diana's experience. And so our goal, I think, was to try not only to show up, but to help us feel that. And we felt that by doing our best to make that a real sort of theatrical surprise and make us, the audience, go, what? Wait a minute. That might give us a chance to know what it's like inside her head.
That's a great answer.
Yes.
I was interested in just the sort of the staging of it and how it seemed like things were going on not quite all at the same time, but things would happen and then they'd happen further and further up. And I was just sort of wondering whether that was something you had originally thought of when you were writing it, or if it was something that came about here.
Well, first answer, if it was something you thought about when you were writing.
No, I knew that in theater it's possible to show multiple things going on at the same time, and I just sort of went from there and wrote whatever the hell I wanted. and Michael Greif read it and bravely agreed that it was possible after helping me realize a few moments that weren't possible, and then did of course wonders with it. So why don't you tell us how?
I was struck with the multiplicity of location and simultaneity of event when I read it. And I thought, well, probably we need a set with a number of levels to be able to show different parts of the house and different parts of the world at the same time, as well as be able to get into Diana's head, which I think this kind of set helps show. And our very spectacular set designer, Mark Wendland, took that idea and then made it. There's Mark now.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
We have time for just a couple more questions. Yes.
I just want to comment. I imagine your job is something that you cannot be afraid of heights. Maybe nervous. I close my eyes a lot. But one of the things that bothered me, I felt a disconnect. The first act seemed almost spooky. Now everyone's supposedly going in the head when they say it's playing a rock and roll rhythm. But that was a kind of disconnect so that it didn't seem to go with the rest of the play. So part of the strongest.
I'll repeat the comment as far as I can tell. We're hearing that this audience member felt a disconnect between the two acts and that the tone of the first act was often satiric and the second act is not, and that felt they felt disconnected in some way. And I imagine some of you feel that way and some of you don't. And she feels there should be more transition from one to the other. And I dare ask, do people agree or disagree? So we're mixed. It's a horse race.
Yes.
I just thought that the first, the surface was there, it was on the surface, and it was funny, it was satirical, and then you got into it, very clearly.
It was certainly an attempt to remove layers of artifice as we go.
Yes.
My comment is, it was an incredible performance in so many ways, musically, story-wise. There are many people in my family that I would love to present. care of yourself. This is what you need, this is what can happen. In my family, I have seen it, I have lived it, and I'm still living it, and I appreciate it incredibly.